91 degrees. That's the reading inside the house, not outside it. The fan has been running since about 2 o'clock. It's pointed at the chair. Curtains shut. Lights off. Everything here is being done right by somebody who's handled hot summers his whole life. And the machine doing the most work in this room is the one the CDC tells you to stop using at 90 degrees. They don't say it stops helping. The wording is stronger than that. Above 90 degrees, a fan can increase body temperature. That fan isn't doing anything different than it did 20 years ago. You are. Look at the wall behind your television tonight, around 11. Put your hand flat on it. That's the part of the house nobody checks. A fan works on sweat. It doesn't cool air, and I'll show you the federal agency that says it in exactly those words. The amount of sweat it has to work with has been going down in you for about 30 years, and nothing ever announces it. Think about the last hot afternoon you got through barely sweating at all, and how quietly pleased you were about that. So the same appliance, in the same room, does one thing for your son and something else for you. You're going to want to argue with me. That isn't stubbornness. It's that you've been fine every summer of your life. And what catches people is almost never the hottest afternoon. It's a night, and there's one specific night I'll come back to because it changes what you do this week. Start with why a fan is in this story at all. In Maricopa County, Arizona, the one county in the United States that counts heat deaths carefully, public health investigators reviewed every one of them from 2025. 430 of them. About a quarter happened indoors, and I won't pretend the total says something it doesn't. It's a desert county with a large homeless population, and most of its deaths happened outside. But inside the houses, the pattern is very clean, and it repeats every year. Here's the first belief worth taking apart, and most people watching are running on it right now. I have air conditioning, so this isn't about me. In 94% of the homes where somebody died of heat indoors, there was an air conditioner. It was there. Somebody bought it, installed it, lived with it. And in 72% of those homes, it wasn't running. The report defines what that means, so there's no argument about it. Not operating properly, broken, or unable to be turned on even with the power on. So this isn't about people who couldn't afford cooling. It's about a machine that quit in the week when everybody's machine quits. And when it quits, almost every household in this country reaches for the same thing. It costs less than dinner. It's already in the closet. And nobody ever told us what it does above 90 degrees. This is the Centers for Disease Control on a page they updated last month. Use fans, but only if indoor temperatures are less than 90 degrees. In temperatures above 90 degrees, a fan can increase body temperature. Read that second sentence again. And underneath that sits the belief almost everyone is running on. A fan cools the room. It doesn't. Here's the Environmental Protection Agency in one line. Portable electric fans do not cool air. They just move the air around. That's the entire function. Same agency, on the temperature where you stop. Do not use electric fans for cooling when the room temperature is in the mid-90s or higher. Two federal agencies, different departments, no reason to coordinate, same number. So the thing your family reaches for on the worst afternoon of the year has a ceiling published by the government, and it isn't on the box. On the CDC's page for people over 65, they say it a third time, plainer. Do not rely on a fan as your main cooling source when it's really hot outside. 3 separate publications. And I still owe you the honest part. I went looking for the experiment behind that number. The Cochrane Collaboration reviews medical evidence for a living. In 2012, they reviewed electric fans in heat waves. They went looking for randomized trials. There weren't any. Their conclusion, in their words, this review does not support or refute the use of electric fans during a heat wave. So no, the evidence is not settled, and I'm not going to sell it to you as settled. What I can show you is where the evidence actually sits, because there's one experiment that was run on bodies the age of yours, not on college athletes, not on soldiers, on 9 people whose average age was 68. And I'll be straight about the size of that. 9 is 9. But it's the only one of its kind, and it runs the opposite way from what everybody assumes. It was published in JAMA in 2016 out of a Heart and Exercise Institute in Texas. They put those 9 adults in a chamber at 107 degrees. Then they raised the humidity slowly, 2% every 5 minutes for 100 minutes. Half the sessions with a fan running, half without. With the fan, core body temperature came out higher. So did heart rate. The authors are careful, so I'll read their summary as written. Electric fans may be detrimental for attenuating cardiovascular and thermal strain of elderly adults during heat waves. They call their own study preliminary. I'm calling it preliminary too. Now here's the part that turns this from a warning into an explanation. The same lead researcher ran the equivalent test on 12 young men. In dry heat, the fan made them worse too. But in humid heat, 104 degrees, with a heat index around 133, the fan helped them. Comfort improved, heart rate came down a little. Same appliance, same room, different body. And his own caution, older people, or anyone with a reduced ability to sweat, may suffer either way. So the question was never whether the fan is good. It's which room you're standing in when you find out. And that's where this stops being about an appliance and starts being about a room. Picking that room is a handful of decisions, annoying to hold in your head on a bad afternoon. That's why I wrote them down. The room walkthrough and the night schedule I'm using here are both in the Survival Systems Preparedness Bundle. $27, one payment. The QR code's on your screen right now and the link is in the description. martinkellen.shop. That's it. Back to the room. Because before you can pick one, you have to deal with the reason most people never bother. And I still owe you that night. And the belief sitting under all of it is this one. If I were in real trouble, I'd feel it. Say your age out loud. Now say the year you last worked a full day in real heat. That gap is what this video is about. 3 things changed inside that gap, and not one of them announces itself. The CDC puts the first one plainly. Older adults do not adjust as well as young people to sudden changes in temperature. The second is about noticing. The CDC writes that people living with a chronic condition may be less likely to sense and respond to changes in temperature. Less likely to sense it. That's the instrument, not the danger. And the third one is thirst, which most people would swear is reliable. In 1984, researchers took 7 healthy men between 67 and 75 and 7 men in their 20s and kept all of them off water for a day. 14 men. It's small, it's 40 years old, and it's been the reference point ever since. The older men were less thirsty and drank less, even though their blood showed they were more dehydrated than the young ones. More dehydrated. Less thirsty. That isn't willpower and it isn't neglect. That's a gauge reading low, which is why the National Institute on Aging writes the sentence that should be on every thermostat in this country. The temperature inside or outside does not have to be high to put them at risk. And that sentence gets worse once you open the cabinet in the bathroom. Almost nobody puts that cabinet in a heat plan. I'll say the important thing first. Nothing in this video is a reason to stop, skip, or change a medication. That's a conversation with your doctor, and only with your doctor. But you should know which list your medication is on. The National Institute on Aging names the categories outright. Water pills, sedatives, tranquilizers, some heart and blood pressure medicines. And their description of what those do is one line. They may make it harder for the body to cool itself. Not harder to notice, harder to cool. Those are 2 different failures and they stack. They flag one more thing, and almost everybody past 60 qualifies for it, being on several prescription drugs at the same time. One is worth naming out loud. Beta blockers. The Institute says they make you more likely to feel faint in the heat. That's a mechanism. It's why standing up fast in a hot kitchen is a different event for you than for your neighbor. And what that whole stack looks like from the outside is nothing. No symptom, no warning light, no bad number on anything you own. Back in that county report, cardiopulmonary disease contributed to 47% of the heat deaths, nearly half. The body most at risk in a hot room is usually already carrying something, which means the fix was never going to be an appliance. So, which room? And then the night, which I haven't forgotten. There's real data on the room, out of an ugly week in July of 1995. After more than 700 deaths beyond a normal week in Chicago, researchers did something unusual. They took 339 people who died and matched each one against a neighbor of the same age on the same block who didn't. The weather was the same, the buildings were the same, the street was the same. Whatever was left had to be the difference. Living on the top floor of a building came back at 4.7 times the odds. Not leaving the house on a normal day, 6.7 times. Living alone, 2.3. On the other side of the ledger, two things cut the odds to about a third: a working air conditioner and access to transportation. Which brings me to the one sentence I'd want you to keep from the CDC's tracking program. Air conditioning is the strongest protective factor against heat-related illness, and exposure to it for even a few hours a day will reduce the risk. A few hours. Not the whole house, not the whole day. That's the permission most people are waiting for and never get. Now the night I owed you, because it isn't the hottest one. Almost everybody runs on the same assumption here. The afternoon is the dangerous part, and the night is when you get it back. The National Weather Service puts a condition on that, and it's exact. Houses and buildings that do not have air conditioning will not cool down if the overnight minimum heat index stays above 75 to 80. That's the mechanism, all of it. Above that line, the building stops letting go. So tomorrow doesn't start where this morning started. It starts on top of it. And the forecast for it reads exactly like today's. The same service on what those nights add up to. Successive days of heat with high nighttime temperatures is really bad. Fatalities will occur. And here's the belief that surprised me most because I held it too. The first hot week is just the body adjusting, and the bad part comes later in the summer. It's the other way around. A study across 43 American cities over 18 years found deaths rose about 5% during the first heat wave of the summer, and about 2.5% during the later ones. Roughly double for the first one. Because nobody's acclimated yet and nobody's worried yet. Those two aren't in conflict. One is about which heat wave of the year. The other is about which night inside it. Both point to the same room. There's one item left on this list and you don't own it. Picture the one person in your family who'd tell you they were fine. Hold that face for a second. That's who the rest of this is for. In that county report, 48% of the people who died indoors were found during a welfare check. Somebody didn't answer a phone. A neighbor knocked. An ambulance got sent to go look. Nearly half. Somebody decided to go over there. The Chicago study found the same from the other end. Social contact came back protective, right alongside a working machine. And the CDC's guidance for anyone caring for someone is specific about it. Twice a day, 4 questions. Are they drinking? Do they have somewhere cool? Do they know how to stay cool? Do they show signs of heat stress? That is not a lot to ask of a Tuesday. So, 91 degrees, inside. The curtains are shut and the lights are off, and both of those are still correct. What's different now is that you know the fan isn't the plan. It's what's left when the plan is broken, and it has a number on it. And the thing that decides the week was never in the closet. It's the room, the night, and the person. And not one of the three is an appliance. None of the three costs anything, and the 20 minutes it takes are best spent before the first hot week, because it's the first one that counts. It's written down at martinkellen.shop, links below. But the part that matters, you already have. You know which wall is warm at 11 o'clock, and you know who you'd want knocking.